Alright, we are going to flesh a Marten pelt. So this is probably one of the easiest fleshing jobs you're going to have to do. Marten do not have a whole lot of fat or meat on them. This is a pretty small female Marten. I'm going to put her on a little board, a little mink board. And we got a couple tools here. Our very sharp knife and our very dull butter knife. That's pretty much all I use. So I'm going to start at the head, and there's a few things usually around the ears that I'm going to try and just rub off with the butter knife. Chunks of meat and cartilage. You don't want to go too rough on these guys because you could rip the pelt, and there's certain things that don't want to come off very easily, and that's where this sharp razor blade knife comes in. Just use my fingers, peel back a little bit, and there it is. Also, paper towels come in pretty handy. You get little tiny stuff like that. I usually leave a lot of that on if it's a really small amount. You kind of just look down here. There's really nothing that needs to come off. Turning this guy around. There's really nothing that needs to come off. See that there's just not a lot on these animals. So it's pretty easy. Now we'll work down. Usually do that head area. Then I'll work on under the arms. There's always going to be a little layer of meat here under the arms, and you just pull the arm up and gently scrape to get that off. Get the majority of it off. Pretty easy. All right. Now we're going to go to the other side. More of the same. This one really doesn't have a lot there either. So we're just going to pull that down. There are scrapers that you can buy to do this, but I've always found the butter knife works just fine for me. Now we're going to work down to the rest of the pelt, and occasionally you have a little chunk of meat here, like this one here, that you just kind of can scrape off pretty quickly. One here. If it gets too stubborn and it's not much, just kind of leave it right there. Here's another bit of flesh here to get off, kind of around the hip area. Pop that off. Alright, now we're pretty much down to the bottom. This middle area, this is called a saddle, and you want to leave that on for Marten. My understanding is that the auction houses recommend to leave it on because if you take it off, I guess it will potentially cause the pelt to rip during drumming because it's a really thin, fragile section of pelt. Here, when I did my opening cut, I was a little sloppy, and so I had some meat that stayed on here right at the very bottom, but that comes off quite easily. Sometimes it's better to be a little conservative at the beginning when you're making your cuts, so you can avoid any issues with cutting ripping holes in the pelt and stuff. But then, look a little bit on the foot, on the back legs. There might be a little bit here and there to pull off, but you are pretty well done. That is fleshing a Marten. It's pretty simple, in my opinion. And now it's time to get this Marten pelt on the board and stretched out. We're going to stretch it fur in first until this area gets fairly dry, and then we're going to turn it and stretch it. For the final stretch is going to be a dried fur out, and this is just such a prime, soft, beautiful fur. It's going to be turned into a really valuable article of clothing somewhere down the road. But anyway, hope this was helpful. Probably not the most professional or expert way to do it, but that's how I flesh Marten. Pretty simple. See you guys next time.